Compass flower starts with a big cloud. And I want to leave some space up on top because we're going to do something up there as well as we go. So a cloud, and then we're going to give it a smaller round cloud friend. Okay. We're going to add some kind of shortish petals. Okay, and I like to do these in clusters. So we'll do 1 and then 2. Then I'll leave a space, 3, 4. I always like a nice fat petal on one side. Okay, you can see they're not super super long, right? And then for this one, we're gonna we'll do it like a compass. And sometimes these overlap and sometimes they don't, depending on how close together you made them. Okay. And then I like to fill in my petals once I've done that. Right, so I kind of have these guidance petals. So it's a petal, and then some, like right there, I'm going to leave a gap, but sometimes they overlap and sometimes they don't. So maybe I'll do a couple overlaps, right? So maybe right there, and then I'm going to leave a gap there. And these aren't super smooth petals on the edges, right? We're not making them jagged, but we're also not going out of our way to make them perfectly rounded, if that makes sense. Okay, and we'll do that a little bit more down here, right? So maybe I made a little wiggle in there. A little squared off. They're not super round, not terribly flat either, but just not perfect. We're going to leave a gap there because I like gaps. And then maybe we'll just tuck a little skinny one, just like right there. Okay. Let's see. So we're gonna add in our stem. Okay, so we want our stem to kind of come like this. So it's curving down from this one, and then it's curving down from this one. Okay, these are chunky little stalks. So I'm gonna come down like this. And like I said, sometimes you're going to overlap and sometimes you won't. So just be mindful of that, right? So then this one, I'm going to bring it down just a little bit so that you can see that kind of where it intersects, right? And then I'll bring this down and I'm going to bring that like this. I like to add in just kind of, we'll bring it up and then a little like that, just a little hint. Okay. Up here, right? So if my stalk were to continue and branch again, it would come right here. So I'm just going to add that in. We're going to add in a little curve and then a little line like this. Okay. Right here at the top, I'm going to put a line and then I'm going to bring it down like a Hershey's Kiss. I'm going to add a petal coming off like this, kind of like a raindrop. A little squiggle right like that. Little hook shaped petal, a little triangle, and then maybe one up like that. Okay. The center of this is just going to be some little scribbles. Okay, you want them kind of dense so that nobody notices that it's just a scribble, but it's just a scribble. We are then going to fill this in, right? We already made scallops. So what I'm doing here is I am making little circles to kind of fill in my scallops. I'm going to do 2 rows all the way around. And then I'm going to do a 3rd row on the top. And then I'm going to fill in the center with those same scribbles that I have up here. And then I'm going to do the same thing down here. Only this time, instead of doing 3 rows all the way around, I'm just going to do 2 because it's smaller, and I'm going to go all the way around. And then I'm just going to do my scribble. And it's okay if your scribble kind of goes over some of these little circles. Okay, I want to add in some leaves, and our leaves are pretty distinct. They're going to come up. We're going to have a little dip. We're going to come up like that. We're going to do a curve one like this. I always think these look like little ribbon pieces. And then we're going to do a little curve one like that. We're going to color these in, but little sketchy coloring. We don't want them to be, we don't want to spend a ton of time coloring these in, coloring these in like super dark, but a little bit. We are now going to add in, let me erase out my pencil so that you can see clearer. Okay. We're going to start here and we're going to make these so these curve down, right? That's going to curve down. This one's going to curve down into the side. These curve up as just that. Okay. We're going to add in these little flick lines coming from the center. And I'm really only doing 1 or 2 lines per petal. The ones that are underneath, you can certainly add in a little bit more, a little darker, right along there. But just a couple little lines. These add all the difference. These really finish off your flower. When I want them to be darker, sometimes I just come by with my pen, right? And just add a little bit of darkness there. You can add in some shading on your stem if you want to. Right? Just a little bit, like right here, and maybe a touch in there. And I'm really just barely kissing the page with my pen. Okay,